Now, both the Prime Minister and the Leader of the Opposition are on official visits to the devolved nations. Rishi Sunak is in Scotland, where he has announced 2 green Freeport bids in conjunction with the Scottish Government. They'll be based in Inverness and in Edinburgh. On the other hand, the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer, is in Northern Ireland. He has delivered a speech at Queen's University in Belfast, where he has promised the Labour Party will be a good faith guarantor of the Belfast Good Friday Agreement and has committed to fixing the Northern Ireland Protocol. We'll be live in both Scotland and Northern Ireland in a moment. We'll speak to Dougie Beattie in Belfast. But first, let's speak to Olivia Utley, who's in Inverness for us. Well, Olivia, it's been the Prime Minister's first visit since he became Prime Minister to Scotland. How has he been received?
Well, Rishi Sunak is certainly at pains to say just how cordial and constructive the meeting with Nicola Sturgeon was. And, of course, his relationship with Sturgeon and the SNP is better than his predecessor. Liz Truss said that Nicola Sturgeon was an attention seeker and the best policy was to ignore her. Also good for Rishi Sunak that his popularity in Scotland is higher than either Liz Truss or Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson's popularity here was notoriously low. Those are the good sides. The other good side, of course, are these Freeports, which is very exciting for Inverness and for Edinburgh. Up to £50 million worth of government funding into green startups, plus a load of tax incentives to help grow the economy here. But, of course, as we knew, Rishi Sunak and Nicola Sturgeon are diametrically opposed on pretty much all the biggest issues facing the UK. And already today we're beginning to see lots of briefings from both of them, which show that, yes, it might have been cordial, but this meeting certainly wasn't friendly. On the NHS, Nicola Sturgeon saying that Rishi Sunak hasn't promised any more money to avert more strikes. And then on the issue of independence, Rishi Sunak has said that everyone in Edinburgh and London should be relentlessly focused on the issues that matter to the UK, i.e. not independence. The other issue, of course, the Gender Recognition Reform Bill, hugely controversial. The Westminster government is threatening to block this Holyrood legislation, which would be pretty much unprecedented. Nicola Sturgeon is not happy about that, nor Stephen Flynn, SNP man in Westminster, who both say it's a question of democracy that this act manages to get through. So Rishi Sunak might be pleased this evening that the visit did go down, better than a Boris Johnson visit might have gone down as, but that's a pretty low base, and it's hard to see very much common ground that Sunak and Sturgeon can find together.
And Olivia, you mentioned Boris Johnson there. There's been some speculation that there might be a deal between Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson to prevent Boris Johnson trying to come back as leader. Were there any questions around that today, or was that mentioned at all?
No, it's a question of Boris Johnson has said this before, that he might go into a deal with Rishi Sunak. We saw that happen over the summer and it never manifested into anything. Rishi Sunak is very keen to shut down all conversation about that. We'll see what happens in the weeks ahead, but personally I think it's unlikely.
Olivia, thank you. Earlier on, you were standing, I think, in front of the lovely Anglican Cathedral in Inverness. I'm not sure that that's a better background for you now, but in any event, we're delighted to see you coming in from Inverness. Dougie, you're in a beautiful part of the world, of course. You're at Stormont. Tell us what's happening over there.
Well, in the last couple of days, we've had quite the events here of high-profile politicians. We had James Cleverly, the Foreign Secretary, and then we had, of course, Keir Starmer today and yesterday. And both of them are trying to look at the issues in and around the protocol that is keeping the institutions behind us down, because unionists, of course, won't go in there. Keir Starmer started his speech today in Queen's University saying that we must look to the past but move forward, because the past is a painful place. Well, of course, if we're going to avoid the mistakes of the past, we have to know our history. And of course, unionists here do not recognise where their laws are made in the EU, because it's, of course, a foreign country to unionist Northern Ireland. They do not recognise the border in the Irish Sea, and they claim there is no sense in being in government behind us here because there is no representation. That all seems very similar to that of the 1970s. Keir also offered cover for the Tories, particularly if they wanted to take on the ERG, because he said that if there was a deal coming in the coming weeks, to take it, and he would give Rishi Sunak that cover. That would suggest that Keir Starmer is very much heading towards realignment with the EU, and that he may need to give that cover to Rishi Sunak because those in his party may not like where he's going with the realignment of the European Union.
Tell me, Dougie, he said if the Prime Minister wanted to take on the ERG, that he would support him in doing that. But if the deal doesn't get the support of the ERG, it's very unlikely to get the support of the Democratic Unionist Party, isn't it?
Well, that's it in a nutshell. And really and truly behind us, it's not only now the Democratic Unionist Party, it's every unionist does not support the protocol. That's the whole point of this argument. And the sister party of the Labour Party, the SDLP, are trying to put a motion forward here at Stormont to make it different how we can elect a speaker. So therefore, what they're effectively doing is going to try and exclude unionism, which will bring us back to Sunningdale in the 1970s when there's a government of only one side. So we do need to look towards the past, painful or not.